Soon the 21st of December 2012 will be upon us, and as before, many people are asking what this Mayan calendar thing is all about. While only a few really seem to think the end of the world is at hand, is there really something coming that the Maya predicted over 1,000 years ago? We've probably all seen the film 2012. Are we in for a bumpy ride, or is the 21st just going to be another day? Does the Mayan calendar really tell us that the world is about to change? Is it really the end of life as we know it? Once again, I'll come straight to the point of this video and answer the question I've just posed. From what I can see, and from a pretty good look at both sides of the argument, the simple answer is no. Video 1 looked at the historical and archaeological background of the debate. Many people don't really know anything about the Maya, who they were, where and when they lived, what happened to them, how their civilization was rediscovered after lying literally in ruins for centuries. It looked at the enigma, the mysteries of the Maya and their fabulous lost cities, their mysterious writing, their lost arcane knowledge, and the calendar that has caused so much recent controversy. In this second video, we'll look at whether the Maya really did predict disaster for this year at the solstice on the 21st. We'll look at the confusion between the Aztec and Maya relics, the world history of predictions of doom, who's who in the Mayan calendar stakes, and how some have suggested it's all going to end on the 21st. Then we'll see what the experts, both scientists and historians, have said, but also on the other side, what Nostradamus has said, astrologers of the present day, and finally, not to forget, the actual Maya of today. So, sit back and enjoy video 2. An amazing thing about the Maya and other Mesoamericans is the way they built astronomical knowledge and observation right into their architecture. For example, the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan has its west face aligned with the midnight setting point of the Pleiades when situated directly overhead. According to some legends, the Mesoamericans originally came from the Pleiades. This is even more apparent in the Pyramid of Kukulkan at Chichen Itza, also known as Il Castillo, or the castle. The pyramid was built around 800 AD at the height of the Maya Classic period and is a 27.5 metre high stepped pyramid. Each of the 4 sides of the pyramid has 91 steps. Added together, there are 364, with the platform on top providing the 365th, representing the number of days in the harp or solar year. Each Maya month of 20 days is represented in the temple on top. 5 day symbols are carved into each of the 4 sides. The body of the pyramid has 9 levels under the temple, representing the 9 underworlds. The staircase divides each level into 2. This means there are 18 levels on each pyramid side, the number of months in the Maya year. The division of the pyramid into 2 by the staircases also represents duality, an important principle of Maya theology. Many Maya deities had both male and female representations. There are 26 rectangular insets at the bottom of each level on each side of the pyramid. Each side has a total of 52 panels, the number of years in the Tunban Kark. At the bottom of the western staircase are 2 serpents' heads, representing Kukulkan, the feathered serpent, the Mayan name for Quetzalcoatl. In the late afternoon of the vernal and autumnal equinoxes, the sun casts a shadow which gives the impression of a serpent writhing from the top to the bottom of the pyramid. This is the famous Aztec sunstone, also known as the Aztec calendar stone and the stone of Axayacatl. It was excavated in Mexico City in 1790 and is currently in the National Museum of Anthropology, Mexico City. It was apparently carved in 1479 and is probably a calendar stone, although this has been disputed. Some people believe sacrifices and other ceremonies took place on it. Note that it is round, which reflects the cyclic pattern, and there are 4 square boxes around a central circle representing the 4 great ages or suns that have already passed in the Aztec mythology. The 5th and present sun is in the central circle. If we now look in detail at the sunstone, we can see the 8 rays of the sun surrounding the main circle. Hidden in the little niches to the left and right of the top and bottom points, in the second most inner circle, we see the symbols of the 4 directions. Xihuitzoli, symbol of the east, 1 flint, symbol of the north, 1 rain, symbol of the south, and 7 monkey, symbol of the west, although you have to peer closely to make out these last 2, but they can just be seen just outside the shadow. In the circle around the ages panels, we see the 20 day gods and their names. And then in the 4 rectangular panels within the ages circle, we see the suns. The first sun or creation, which began and ended on the date of 4 Jaguar. According to Aztec mythology, this first creation was peopled with giant inhabitants who at the end of that creation were eaten by jaguars. The second sun began and ended on 4 Wind. It ended in a hurricane with the survivors turning into monkeys. The third sun began and ended on 4 Rain. That creation ended in a rain of fire. Its survivors turned into turkeys, butterflies, and dogs. The fourth sun began and ended on 4 Water. It ended in a massive flood, and its survivors turned into fish in order to live on. The 5th and present sun began on 4 Earthquake, and that's also how it is supposed to end. The Maya view of the creations is slightly different in its characters and events, but the main difference is that they believed there had been only 4 suns, not 5. According to the predominant Aztec legend, there will be no more suns. However, another line of thought is that this last sun is in a circle and therefore stable, which means it could last forever. In fact, some evidence suggests this last sun might just keep going past 13 Pictons, past 20, and on and on. Which brings us to the so-called Mayan prophecy. The long count of 5,125 years is the basis of the prophecy hysteria about the Mayan calendar and 2012. But as we've already seen in video 1, there is already considerable doubt about the date of 21st December 2012, if we take into account what archaeology and historical research have shown us. Incidentally, everywhere we look to find out about the Mayan calendar, we tend to see an image of the Aztec sunstone, and I have to confess my commemorative calendar is the same. But the Aztec sunstone is not the Mayan calendar, although it has come to be equated with it in recent times. But the Maya did not make it. By the time it was made, their great cities already lay long abandoned. The Aztecs also had major differences to Maya belief and the timings of the calendar, and there was this fundamental disagreement about whether there were 4 or 5 creations. The Chilam Balaam of Tzitziman is a key text for those who believe the Maya predicted doom in 2012. One part reads, "In the final days of misfortune, in the final days of tying up the bundle of the 13 on Forahau, then the end of the world shall come, and the cartoon of our fathers will ascend on high." This verse is often pushed as proving the Maya predicted all this a millennium ago. However, this particular text was written after the Spanish conquest and contains Spanish influences, including Christian apocalyptic themes. The key archaeological find that really excites the doomsayers and actually gives rise more and more than anything to this idea of the Mayan prediction of doom is this stele number 6 found at Tortuguero. The eminent Mayan scholar Michael Coe made a statement about this stele back in 1966. He said that, and I quote, "There is a suggestion that Armageddon would overtake the degenerate peoples of the world and all creation on the final day of the 13th, Baktun. Thus, our present universe would be annihilated in December 2012, unquote. This statement took on a life of its own, and Michael Coe has been trying to disown it ever since. The stele is cracked and badly eroded in several pieces, and unreadable in places, so it is very hard to get the exact meaning of it. The translation of the known text reads, "The 13th Baktun will be finished, for Ahau, the 3rd of Kankin, will occur. The descent of the Bolan Yukta to the..." And that's as much as we have. Now, Bolan Yukta, which is a word that no one can agree on exactly what it means, has been translated variously as 9 support gods, but actually could be one of a number of things. 2 of the foremost Maya scholars, Sven Gronemeyer and Barbara MacLeod, reassessed this stele in 2010 because of all the controversy surrounding it. They came to the conclusion that the inscription refers to the enrobing or parading of the effigy of a god in a future ceremony to take place on this date. Remember the distance numbers from video 1? That's what we're talking about here. Talking about a future date in relation to something happening at the time the inscription was carved. The Tortuguero stele was the only reference to the Mayan end date for years, until, in fact, this year. On June 29 this year, it was announced that an inscription found on a staircase at an excavation in La Corona, Guatemala, was only the second known inscription that mentions the end date of the Mayan calendar. And in the picture here, we see the date in the bottom right of 4 Ahau and 3 Kankin. However, we shouldn't get too excited. The tablet actually commemorates a royal visit to La Corona in 696 AD by the previously most powerful Maya ruler Yuknom Yishak Kark of Calakmul. He had just suffered a major military defeat at the hands of his rival ruler of Tikal, and it seems he was visiting allies and trying to shore up support. The tablet alludes to larger cycles of time to try to allay their fears. In other words, it was being used for Maya political spin.
A new Mayan discovery points to 2012 as the end, although doomsday predictors will probably want to hold off before citing this one as evidence of the coming apocalypse. Ancient carved panels found in Guatemala confirmed 2012 as the end of the Mayan calendar. The 1,300-year-old panels mark the second such known reference to the end date, but it may be a disappointment for doomsday enthusiasts who believe that the end is coming in December of this year, because according to researchers, the new carvings don't make any apocalyptic prophecies. Instead, they simply mark the end of the calendar cycle. Because of these discoveries, the area in Guatemala is now considered one of the most important of the Mayan sites in all of Central America.
By no means were only the Mesoamericans obsessed by the end of the world. The Christian world has also been especially riveted by the idea of the apocalypse since its very beginnings. The surreal visions of the book of Revelation have been particularly appealing to those inclined. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus makes reference to Judgment Day. So does St. Paul in the letters to Peter and in 1 Thessalonians. Early Christians fully expected the end of days to come in their lifetimes. The destruction of the temple and the city of Jerusalem by the Romans in 70 AD occurred while many of the first Christians were still alive. The destruction of everything they knew seemed to confirm their expectations that the end was coming. It was actually a great source of disappointment for many when the world did not end. Millennial and end times hysteria have happened regularly throughout history, particularly at significant dates. Wikipedia lists at least 155 predicted end dates since 1 AD, around the time of the birth of Christ, with 75 of these in the 20th century alone. Much of the world has shivered in fear as the end of December approached in the years 500, 666, 1000, 1033, 1500, 1666, and to a lesser extent at the end of each century. The 3-month-long visit of Halley's Comet in 989 AD caused great panic, as it was thought to be an omen of the coming disaster, which was near the turn of the first millennium. When the end did not come in 1000, there was immediately a surge of new activity, particularly in church building, as people felt they could start making long-term plans again. But then towards 1033 AD and the 1000th anniversary of Christ's death and resurrection, the fears rose again, but passed again too, when the date passed without incident. We can all remember the panic of some as the year 2000 approached, the end of the second millennium. Many thought this was finally it. Here are some other predicted end dates. The visit of the comet Hale-Bopp in 1997, the 1999 and 7-month date of Nostradamus, Y2K and its associated bugs, the great planetary alignment of 7 planets on May 5, 2000. Various Christian pastors continue to claim that their studies of the Bible have allowed them to work out the date of Jesus' return and the end of the world. For example, the Millerites, named after their leader William Miller from New England in the USA. Miller gave 4 end dates between 1843 and 1844 and revised his prediction each time it didn't happen. In time, his group turned into the Seventh-day Adventists and the Jehovah's Witnesses. The Bible student movement, which was a later Millerite offshoot, cited 8 dates between 1874 and 1925. Joseph Smith, founder of the Mormons, said it would be within 56 years of 1835. The return of Halley's Comet in 1910 was thought by some to be a sign of the end in the 20th century. Dorothy Martin predicted a biblical flood in 1954, which she had learned of by channeling aliens. Her followers, called the Seekers, were due to be rescued by flying saucers. Televangelist Pat Robertson expected the end by the end of 1982. As we know, the Heaven's Gate sect expected to be whisked away from the apocalypse when the Hale-Bopp comet came visiting in 1997. God's Church minister Ronald Wineland predicted the end by fall 2008. And US radio preacher Harold Camping predicted the last trumpet on 6th of September 1994, then on 21st May 2011, then on 21st of October 2011, then, well, you get the idea. We might laugh at these people as harmless eccentrics, but there can be some serious consequences. Many of the Millerites suffered what they called the Great Disappointment. We've heard about Dorothy Martin. When aliens didn't come knocking at the door, the Seekers were actually literally waiting for this. The group was initially very disappointed. But luckily, Dorothy got another timely message that the prayers of the group had prevented the apocalypse and saved the world. Some of the group actually went out and bragged about this to the newspaper afterwards. Hale-Bopp comet visit in 1997 resulted in the mass suicide of 39 Heaven's Gate cult members on 26th of March 1997. Harold Camping's predictions also had consequences. A mother tried to cut the throats of her daughters, aged 11 and 14, with a box cutter to spare them the suffering of the coming apocalypse. An elderly man in Taiwan killed himself by jumping from a building. Basically, there are always some vulnerable people who may go to extraordinary and destructive lengths to save themselves or others from the coming trauma and suffering. So who's who in the 2012 Maya Stakes? From the Maya, we have Don Alejandro Cirillo, a Mayan daykeeper and elder whose advice is, don't be afraid. Another Maya elder, Hunbat's Men, simply says it's the beginning of another cycle. From American Tony Shearer, we have a date of the 16th of August 1987, which he thought would be a significant date which he saw as the end of centuries of negativity which had started with Columbus. As a result of this date, Jose Aguilas organised the Harmonic Convergence in 1987, a gathering of sacred sites to heal the world. And this became the catalyst for the New Age movement. Then he came up with the idea of a cyclic division of history into the 260-day grid of the Tzolk'in, and the idea that history is speeding up. His solution to the Earth's problems was his 13-moon dream spell calendar, which would replace the Gregorian calendar with a 13-month one. Few have taken it up so far. It might be to do with the fact that he gave up a perfectly good job as an art professor and instead started channeling the Mayan king Pakal the Great, whose sarcophagus lid we saw in video 1. And he changed his name from Jose Aguilas to Valem Votan, which means closer of the cycle. American John Major Jenkins was the one who came up with the idea of the galactic alignment of 21st of December 2012. He thinks this will lead to a rebirth of human civilization. Israeli Zechariah Sitchin spent a long time warning people that the planet Nibiru known as he claims from Sumerian mythology, will collide with or destabilise Earth's orbit. He has predicted several dates for this over the years, but stopped claiming that 21st December 2012 is the one, since the really way out Nibiru nuts got more attention. Swede Carl Johan Kallerman expanded on some of Aguilas's ideas and came up with his ideas of the world tree meridian and days and nights of creation, as well as acceleration of time through the 9-level pyramid. His ideas are complicated, but his book is worth a read. He did claim the end date of 21st December was wrong and was expecting everything to go south on October 18, 2011. Some of the predictions of destruction for the winter solstice of 21st December 2012 include threats from various deities, the return of Quetzalcoatl, God bringing on Judgment Day, what's new about this, and of course the rapture. Incidentally, what is intriguing about this is the fact that a Pictun is 144,000 days, the same number of devotees forecast in Revelation to be taken up in the rapture. However, we should remember that 144,000 is a mystical number in several religions. Then we have intergalactic threats, such as the galactic alignment and the galactic superwave, a supernova explosion, and first contact with aliens. Threats from within the solar system include collision with or orbit interference from planet X or Nibiru, reversal of the sun's magnetic poles, destructive solar flares, comet or asteroid strike. And then we have Earth-based threats, which include reversal or shift of the Earth's magnetic poles, failure of the Earth's magnetic field, Earth shifts and catastrophic earthquakes, and the eruption of one or more supervolcanoes, for example Yellowstone, or the Phlegraean fields, which are around Mount Vesuvius in Italy. Not finished quite yet. Now the really weird. The time wave, which is an exponential speeding up of time, which means everything starts happening really fast. A black hole caused by particle accelerator experiments. A field effect reversal, which means the spin direction reversal of cyclones and water spiralling down a plug hole would reverse. Not quite sure how catastrophic that would be, but it's interesting. And finally, we have even the positive. The cosmogenesis, the dawn of a new age of wisdom, and evolved global consciousness and heightened spirituality. A major part of Jenkins' theories is the claim that the solstice sun this year appears to be rising directly over the black hole at the centre of the galaxy. The black hole is still theoretical and not yet proven, but the theory is growing in popularity amongst astronomers that a black hole may be at the centre of most, if not all, galaxies. The position on the ecliptic, where the ecliptic or the path of the sun crosses the galactic centre, is 28 degrees Sagittarius. Astrologers call this point the point of destiny. But the process of this crossing of the galactic centre takes 36 years, and according to astronomers actually started around 1980 to 81. So rather than being at the middle of this right now, at present we still have until 27 or 18 to go, but we are 5/6 of the way through this process. And we passed the centre point around 1998 to 1989. The galactic alignment Is this as rare as the 2012ologists claim? The process of what is called precession of the equinoxes takes a full 26,000 years to do one full 360-degree circle of the heavens. The fact that the stars don't stay in the same relative positions is one reason critics of astrology claim astrology is impossible, because the astrological signs actually keep changing positions over the course of time. So if the position of the sun at the winter solstice rising does change minutely each year, how much is that the case? Here's the position over a number of years. First, this is the 21st of December at sunrise this year, 2012. Note the position of the sun on the ecliptic as compared to where it is next to the galactic plane and with everything else around it. Now here's the same thing in 2011. Notice it's in basically exactly the same position. And of course the fact is the time may have changed slightly too. And here it is in 2010. And this is where it was in 2008. And in 1999. And in 1950. Have you noticed any change yet? We start to notice a difference in 1500 and in the year 1000 AD. At the birth of Christ, there is a definite difference, and at the beginning of the last great Mayan age, in 3114 BC, 5125 years ago, the sun's rising is a fifth of the way around the zodiac. But really, is this year's solstice any different from last year's, or 10, or even 50 years ago? John Major Jenkins and his followers think so, but I can't see it. And if Jenkins is to be believed that the midpoint of the galaxy centre is the key place, then we've already passed it about 13 years ago. However, it is certainly interesting looking at post-1980 history for this 36-year period. This period was initiated with the Iranian Revolution in 1979, and the world being drawn in with the US hostage crisis beginning in November 1979. In 1981, IBM produced the first personal computers. The Chernobyl accident in April 1986 cast doubt worldwide on nuclear energy. And in 1981, the first of the great modern plagues, AIDS, was first observed clinically in the US. Communism began to collapse in 1989, first in Poland, then Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Romania, and finally the USSR in 1991. In the late 1980s, the first commercial internet service providers were set up. The internet has revolutionized the modern industrial world, as the printing press revolutionized the post-medieval world. In 1990, the Hubble Space Telescope was launched. Dolly, the first cloned sheep, was born on 5th of July 1996. However, slightly more on the negative side, towards the end of the first 18 years, Osama bin Laden declared war on the US in 1996. And interestingly, almost right over the midpoint were the US embassy bombings in Kenya and Tanzania in 1998, his opening campaign. Since the sun started moving past the midpoint in 1988 to 9, we've seen a new and terrible type of terrorism in 9/11 and in militant Islam taking on the rest of the world. We've also seen SARS and bird flu in 2003, the global financial crisis in 2008, and swine flu in 2009. However, we also saw the mapping of the human genome in 2003 and the election in the US of its first black president in 2008. And we've just seen his re-election prove to doubters that this wasn't a one-time fluke. During these first 30 years of the galactic alignment, I think you will all agree that the world has changed massively. So now we come to the world's foremost dead expert on disaster prediction. Whether you believe Nostradamus could really predict the future, many do. From 1996 to 2000, 186 new books about Nostradamus were published. Since September 2001, 707 new publications about Nostradamus were listed on Amazon.com. Most of these link Nostradamus to the 2012 phenomenon. So do many 2012 websites, as do sensational TV shows and DVDs. However, there is nothing new here. All simply recycle the exact same verses used for 9/11 or the millennium. And I have made a major study of Nostradamus over the last 10 years in preparation for a biography in 2016. So I can tell you with some authority that Nostradamus made absolutely no reference to 2012. And his preface to Caesar in Le Prophète claims his work comprises prophecies from today to the year 3797. So I don't think Nostradamus was worried about the Mayan calendar, despite claims to the contrary. So, what does science have to say about the theories of how it's all going to end? About literal acts of God? Harold Camping, after his last attempt to predict the end, gave it up and quoted Matthew 24:36, "Of that day and hour knoweth no man." Not bad advice. Is the end coming through galactic alignment? Well, astronomers and physicists say the centre of the galaxy is so far away that gravity and any other force imaginable would have no effect. A supernova in the neighbourhood? This could be serious, as it would cause a bombardment of gamma rays. Any prospects? Not just now. Could we do anything about it? Other than move underground, perhaps? No. A gravitational wave? This could cause earthquakes and biblical scale floods. But small events of this type occur about every 500 years or so. What about a large comet or asteroid hit? Well, this happens every 100 million years or so, statistically. Astronomers are on watch and there's nothing in prospect at present, but it's also difficult to see what we could do about it anyway. Only Hollywood knows the answers to this one. What about the return of Nibiru? Well, Sumerian archaeology and texts are vague about Nibiru, which could be a god, the planets Mercury or Jupiter, or a fixed or a crossing star. In Sumerian mythology, what it does not seem to be is a rogue planet. Sitchin's claims are considered flawed by mainstream Sumerian experts. It is true that up to 5 planetoids or dwarf planets about the size of Pluto have in fact been discovered outside the orbit of Neptune, but none is on a collision course with Earth. What about reversal of the Sun's magnetic poles? This happens every 11 years and correlates to sunspot activity. There is admittedly some asymmetry this time, which can lead to more severe solar flares, but so far the season seems milder. Destructive solar flares? As said, so far this year's solar flares seem to be not as severe as expected. They cannot harm people, but may disrupt electrical and communication systems if there is no warning to enable harm minimisation to be undertaken before they hit. What about alien first contact? Well, if this does occur, let's hope they are as evolved, altruistic and spiritual as ufologists claim. Given humanity's history of contacts between technologically stronger and weaker societies, take the Spanish and Mesoamerica for example, the prospects are perhaps not so encouraging. Reversal or shift of the Earth's magnetic poles? Well, there's been gradual pole migration already been observed since accurate measurements began about 100 years ago. Perhaps this happens all the time. The geological record shows this has happened frequently in Earth's past. Usually it's a very gradual process, and there is no expectation of sudden movements soon. Failure of the Earth's magnetic field as a result of migration of the poles? Well, permanent failure is unlikely, but temporary failure could last from a month to years, perhaps no one knows, and could result in cosmic rays causing serious problems. A permanent failure of the magnetic field on Mars is likely to have caused the loss of its atmosphere, but there is no indication that this is likely to happen on Earth anytime soon. As to Earth shifts and catastrophic earthquakes, there has been a 500% increase in the number of recorded earthquakes and a 200% increase in volcanic activity in the last century, which on the surface of it seems worrying. However, this may be due to a corresponding increase in the number and sensitivity of sensors and much wider and quicker and more comprehensive reporting of events. There is an unproven conspiracy theory that military experiments may be having seismic and weather effects, but of course that information is classified. Supervolcano eruptions? Well, these have happened before with reasonable regularity, but are not extinction events. Far more serious would be a flood basalt event. There are 11 known occurrences in Earth's biological history, all with significant extinctions. So, what do the Mayan scholars say? Above all, they say that the 2012 Mayan calendar predictions, especially the more fanciful ones, are ideas dreamed up by people who are not knowledgeable about the evidence and are influenced more by their own particular fixations. These modern predictions of destruction are not backed up by actual archaeological evidence. And even when there is some historical evidence we've seen, it is always fragmentary. The many versions of Maya and Aztec narratives often drastically contradict one another. There is also a body of evidence to suggest that if a Maya sculptor made a mistake, it was never corrected. What evidence there is implies that the Maya also recorded dates of anticipated events beyond 2012, so there was no expectation that the world would end at the end of the cycle. Maya and Aztec inscriptions were often created for political spin to benefit current rulers, so there's no change in politicians there. And finally, cyclic time does not mean a complete repetition of exactly all the events of a great age. Each Maya or Aztec creation age was considered an improvement on the previous one, so perhaps this one breaks the mould, and destruction is not a given. So, let's see what modern astrologers are predicting. Once again, it's not the end of the world, although big changes are expected soon, and their predictions make for some very interesting coincidences. On 21st December 2012, Jupiter in Gemini forms a Yod aspect to Saturn in Scorpio and Pluto in Capricorn. This aspect is known as the Finger of God aspect. This particular Yod implies the past coming into major conflict with the future, with great doubt as to whether those with the capacity to change things have the will or the ability to change. Some revolutionary changes in direction are necessary in certain areas. These areas include banking and finance, foreign and domestic policies, and the rule of law, building and construction, ideas of education, and religion. Well, if we have a look at what's happening in the world these days, these particular predictions seem hardly surprising. Old structures, regimes, and authorities that are unwilling to change may be destroyed, but may also produce violent death throes in their demise. Mass changes in consciousness can inaugurate new collective beliefs under this yod. There may be deep-seated reorientation of ideology and religious belief. It's likely that Christianity may be particularly affected, but other religions are facing similar pressures. A principal theme of the yod is the initiation and building of new ideas and concepts about the future. This aspect is global in nature. Positive, decisive global leadership is necessary for future success. And the continuing Uranus-Pluto squares will reinforce and reinvigorate the yod until 2015. The slow transition from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius is also becoming more apparent. Age of Pisces characteristics are the historical development of most of the major world religions, issues of faith and trust, but also deception, with hidden agendas, sometimes leading to excessive submission. People tend to be highly emotionally involved in what they're doing. Age of Aquarius characteristics are the invention of new systems and ways of doing things, modern, inventive, highly intellectual, social and altruistic, but there is a risk of becoming impersonal or detached from real contact. Anyone want to suggest the internet or Facebook as a sign of that? Change must come from within rather than without, otherwise chaos and anarchy can ensue. Some say the change to the age of Aquarius has already occurred. And to end the astrology report about the yod on a positive note, while major changes are necessary and coming, there is nothing end of the world about them. And the corresponding shift in collective consciousness is a very positive factor. Mitigating the yod are a couple of positive supportive aspects. The Sun sextile Neptune and Venus conjunct the sensitive part of the yod at 8 degrees Sagittarius are helpful and beneficial aspects which counter the yod's negative influences. Venus always implies the need to negotiate, which is clearly just what's needed. This all implies a loving and creative attitude could be helpful both individually and collectively. And that sounds like good advice to me.
The Mayan calendars never ending. The Mayan calendar is continuation of cycles. Now, one short cycle have connection with another cycle, and this cycle has connection with another, and something like this is continuation and continuation. Go to the end, the cycle, but that cycle on short calendar, example, the calendar of 30 years, and then the next is 52 years. So the 30 years, it has connection with 52 years. It's like this. But in this December 21st, going to the end of one cycle of calendar, the name is Sekeb, and that's the calendar of 5,120 25 years. So, but this calendar, all these years, had connection with another calendars too.
So there's other calendars. There's other Mayan calendars?
Many. We have around 17 calendars of the Mayas today. So one is for 23 years, another for 52 years, another 520 years, like this.
And this big cycle is ending.
The big cycle of 5,125 is ending in December 21st this year.
What happens when the calendar ends?
Well, another cycle begin again. And then, but the importance is on try to understand these calendars going to the end. According to the Mayan calendars, is a cycle of something about the sun, our beautiful father sun. Go to the end, and then start another calendar. So it's like this, never end, finish it, and finish everything in the Mayan calendars. It's one connection with another like this. But important is something going to happen in the sun, because it looks like go to the end, sun cycle, big cycle of the sun. And then December 22nd, start another.
And the sun is cycling where? What cycle is happening with the sun?
Suppose something is going to change in the sun. Exactly what's going to change, I don't know, because suppose long time ago, all the Mayas, they knew exactly what's going to happen. But since it came here, the Spanish civilization, it destroyed many things about this information. For me, I can remember some parts, but it's difficult because there's no more information. Remember, they destroyed the stelas, they destroyed the codes, they destroyed many things. But I know something about this because it's part of my education in the Mayan tradition. But completed information, I don't know, because, they destroy it.
So is there something we can do on that day?
Well, my recommendation is like the Mayas, my ancestors, every time when you go to the end sun cycle, so we need to go in front of the sun to do meditation and pray for the next cycle. And we can ask, can be much better than this cycle. Next, it looks like more like cosmic information is coming for to understand the cosmos, the time of the cosmos.
Why then all the predictions of destruction, of doom?
Happened that because it's like in this crazy Western culture, when something go to the end, is come negative predictions, like the end something, the destruction, or many things like this. But not in the Mayan culture, because we understand when we finish one cycle, we need to pray to the time, to the cycle of the time, and ask to Hunapku to be much better the new cycle.
Hunapku, what is that?
Hunapku is the god in Maya, is our god in Maya. Hunapku is the giver of the movement and measure. So what's going to come in the next cycle? Movement and measure.
Okay. Where are you going to be in December 21st?
I hope can be in Chichen Itza, which is the most huge ceremony center we have today in close to my place and in the peninsula is the most huge ceremony center. And I understand my ancestors, the spirit of my ancestors is there, is going to be there, watching us and praying with us to be better the next cycle.
For more information on the next Star Knowledge Conference, go to starknowledgeconference.com.
And that was Maya Daykeeper and Elder Hunbat's Men. So, to sum up, who says what? The scientists are saying that nothing might happen, or might happen anyway, that is going to happen. So there's nothing that we can actually do. It's rather like the getting run over by a bus principle. It might just be your unlucky day or Earth's, but it's no use worrying about anything that might or might not happen. What do the real Mayan scholars say? The evidence in the texts, in fact, does not support the end of the world. It's the opposite of supporting it. The modern day Maya, well, they think the calendar turns over and starts again. Nostradamus, absolutely no mention of 2012. Astrologers, well, there's nothing world-ending in the stars, but it is certainly interesting how some of their predictions tally with the themes of the Mayan calendar. So, in conclusion, Susan Milbrath, curator of Latin American art and archaeology at the Florida Museum of Natural History, stated, "We have no record or knowledge that the Maya would think that the world would come to an end in 2012. And that's basically my conclusion too. Virtually all of the end of the world scenarios have no real scientific basis for worry at this time. And if the end were coming, it would be more than likely a case of the day our number came up. There is no current evidence to suggest that that is in fact occurring, and it would be totally out of our control to prevent it anyway, in most of those scenarios. But how much time and effort has been wasted by some on this Mayan calendar idea? And it often diverts from real issues which need our attention. Whether we believe in the Mayan calendar or not, no one can deny that we face major challenges, including a world financial model which is clearly neither reformed, sustainable, nor effectively functioning, with exactly the same people running things as got us into the last mess. Climate change that now seems more serious than the worst predictions from our scientists. Unsustainable current energy usage and sources, but disinterest and even sabotage by vested interests in the search for alternatives. Increasing political ferment in the Middle East, with rulers trying to keep the lid on unrest. Human overpopulation and limited water and food. And rogue states such as North Korea and Iran, with disaffected people elsewhere turning to terrorism. So, how do we treat 2012 and the 21st of December? My opinion, like any other day or year. We should live positively and remember the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Make the world a better, not a worse place, and remember that each individual can make a difference. Realize that each voice makes a difference, so make your voice heard. Your small stone in the pond can spread out and cross the ocean, so become a wave crashing upon a distant shore. Make a positive ripple in the pond of life. I hope you've enjoyed both these presentations on the Mayan calendar and the 2012 controversy. Have a great Christmas on the 25th of December and a great 2013.